Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Tragic news this week. Of course, if you're a wrestling fan, you've heard about it. The tragic passing of Jay Briscoe a couple of days ago. He was in an automobile accident. The accident was not his fault from the reports that we have seen. Another driver crossed over the center line, hit him head on. I mean, even beyond the wrestling aspect of this, Justin, and the tragedy of losing such a skilled and talented, not just tag team wrestler, but singles wrestler as well, multiple time tag team champion, former ROH world champion as well, is just the family aspect of this, with his two young daughters, ages 9 and 12, that he was taking to cheerleading practice. And they're both in critical condition last I saw. So, I mean, of course, thoughts out to his family. It's been a rough week in the wrestling world because of that. I mean, Jay Briscoe and his brother coming off of one of the best trios series of matches in tag team wrestling history this past year. This is such a tragic loss.
Yeah. Boy, I don't really know where to start with Jay Briscoe. I guess maybe I'll go with kind of my introduction to him. I have bought exactly one pro wrestling pay-per-view where I was by myself. I had no intention of, talking about it with anybody else or podcasting about it. I was just curious and I wanted to see it. And I think I was also a little bored that night. And that was, I believe, Final Battle 2014 with Jay Briscoe versus Adam Cole. And for me, it was all about those two and seeing them. And Jay was just on an incredible run. Like I had kind of known about him before this world title run, but he was always, a tag team guy. But the way, for one, his promos have always been pretty exceptional. And his in-ring work has always been pretty exceptional. But the way he carried himself in that title run was remarkable. I mean, he legit came off as a badass and a world champ and kind of inconquerable. So I just kind of had to see it for myself, and it was a really good match. I loved it, and and I guess about that same time, I just briefly want to touch on this. He had some pretty bad tweets about stuff that we don't really need to get into. And that really turned me off on him for a long time. But, especially with his passing, a lot of stuff's coming out, and he did a lot of work behind the scenes to educate himself and to be better. And he I think he put out one or two statements saying, how embarrassed he was with those statements. And, that doesn't reflect on who the Briscoes are and how they feel about people. And they're about love. They're not about hate. And I think, gosh, I can't remember if it was Bix or somebody else just recently was talking about, it's like he did all this work behind the scenes. He didn't like put it out to the masses like, hey, look at me. I'm doing all this stuff right, so you guys can come accept me. And then, like, I don't know, like, I was kind of taken aback by just the complete love for him, the outpouring from just all corners of the wrestling world. Because I guess I just didn't really know much about him other than, like those tweets and him working through it as far as his personal life goes. And it just, he came off as the sweetest guy in the world when you look at what everybody was saying about it. And just, it makes the loss all that much harder, I guess. I mean, it's never easy to lose somebody, but man, when it's somebody beloved like that, you don't always see that in the wrestling world.
No, I mean, yeah, universal. You saw it from wrestlers across companies. I mean, even Triple H tweeting about him, and yeah, just such a terrible loss. And like I said, coming off of those 3 great matches with FTR, I'd seen Jay Briscoe over the years here and there. We actually saw him wrestle live, I believe, just once when we were in New Orleans at the ROH Supercard of Honor back in 2018.
Yeah, it was against Tanahashi and
Jay Lethal.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. That
Which
was a
I
pretty good
think
match. Yeah.
yeah. That show was just really poorly laid out, so I think we were a little out of it by that point,
Yeah.
so I don't know
Yeah,
if
it
we
was
gave it
late
our
in the
full
show.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I just pulled up the card. It was that match was like 5th from the top, but there had already been like 8 or 9 matches before it. So it was like an AEW show before AEW
Yeah.
as
And the
far
place
as
ran out of food. Like, we went out to go get food, and they were all
oh
out of it.
man. Yeah. So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, AEW and, what happened with them not being able to bring them in and everything. And I think that's such a shame with what happened with Warner, because as you said,
Yeah.
he educated himself on those comments he made a long time ago. He took full responsibility for it. If you're not aware, again, these were some anti-gay comments he made on Twitter. But I mean, there's been gay wrestlers in the wrestling community that have come out and said he's great, and
Mhm.
he took full responsibility. So I have no reason to hold that against him whatsoever. And he definitely made himself a better person, making this even more tragic. So
And yeah, just I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I was
I
just
got
gonna
I got
say,
no,
38 years old.
I have to curse one more time, going to what you were just saying. A big fat fuck you to Warner Brothers for, they don't want any part of the Briscoes, and yet they immediately follow up Dynamite with Power Slap, brought to you by Dana White.
Yeah, wife beating is okay, I guess,
Jesus.
with them. Come on. I was pretty happy to see that show did awful in the ratings just fine.
Yeah. Oh, I've never been more proud of wrestling fans than seeing that like 2/3 of them were like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, not good. So,
I
yeah.
do have a wrestling related question when it comes to Jay Briscoe for you, unless there was anything else you wanted to get to before
No.
I
No, go ahead.
uh where does he rank as far as wrestlers that you would have almost certainly only identified as a tag team wrestler, or had great success as a tag team wrestler, but then went on to have, a pretty incredible, world championship singles
Mhm.
main event run? Because for one, the list isn't quite as long as I thought it would be.
No.
Obviously, the first two that are going to come to mind: Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. But like after that, you're talking Booker T, Scott Steiner, and then I guess I have a hard time including them, but maybe Edge and Jeff Hardy. Edge, because I don't know. To me, I guess I never would have really ever identified him as a tag team wrestler, although that's kind of where, he made his name. But he definitely ended up as, main event single star. And then Jeff Hardy's kind of the exact opposite, where definitely identify him as a tag team star. And his really none of his main event runs were all that great.
Right. Boy, I mean, it's hard to put him, I mean, on those levels just because he wasn't in as big of a promotion. But as far as like a successful wrestler in the ring and showing that charisma, showing that in-ring ability, the ability to carry himself as a champion. Boy, he's right up there. I mean, you're going through the names. We were texting about this earlier today. I mean, Christian is kind of in that discussion too. I would think of Christian more than
Mm,
Edge as a tag team specialist, because Edge had already kind of had that singles
yeah.
push prior, and I kind of really took notice first with him and Edge and Christian. So I mean I can't put him on that WWF mountaintop that you just listed, but I mean, boy, as far as the independents, he's right at the top, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, even looking at outside of Brett and Sean, I would put his in-ring work up there with, above any of those other guys.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
and
like,
I and I would say, even though it was an independent, I would put his run as Ring of Honor world champion above any of the world title runs that Booker T or Scott Steiner or certainly Jeff Hardy ever had.
oh yeah,
I don't
I
know
would
if
agree.
I don't even know if Edge ever really had that classic, world title run. He was kind of more about
Yeah.
winning it and then losing it right away.
Right. Right. No, I mean, I'm looking at his cage match listing and by the Observer star ratings, and just the amount of diversity here is pretty incredible. I
Mhm.
mean, you see singles matches with Adam Cole and Flip Gordon, towards the top, Jay Lethal. You see the tag team matches, of course, with FTR right at the top, the Bucks. You've got uh 10-man tag team match with Styles and the Bullet Club up there as well. I mean, he was a pretty diverse wrestler. I,
Well, and
I got to give him credit. Yeah.
that was the other thing I kept seeing come up, yesterday and today is people talking about it, like you're going to be hard pressed to find a bad Jay Briscoe match. Like
Yeah.
they are few and far between.
Brody King, PCO,
Mhm.
Top Rope Nation veteran, PCO. El Generico and Kevin Steen, Owens and Sami Zayn, of course. Yeah, man. I mean, he's worked. When you look at the top wrestlers, in-ring performers of the last 15 years, I mean, he's been in the ring with most of them.
Mhm. Yep.
And yeah.
I mean, when you start your pro wrestling career at 18, you're bound to work with a lot of them.
Yeah. In the chat, Adam wanted to know if there was any relation to the Briscoes. I think he's talking about like Jerry Briscoe and Jack Briscoe. No relation there. Some
God, you know what?
congratulations messages in the chat as well. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wish I would have looked up where or how they came up with using the Briscoes name. I guess I'm not sure what the answer is to that.
Yeah, spelled differently too. With that E on the end. I am not sure.
Mm.
I don't know what the genesis of that was. If Kyle was on the show, he probably would know. He is the wrestling Rain Man. just text Kyle right now. He'll know. But yeah, rest in peace. I mean, I hope obviously his two daughters recover.
Yeah.
Lots of prayers going out there and thoughts and good vibes to the family, and we're thinking about